So, Chair, that the recording has now started.
Okay, thank you. So we've dealt with apologies. Any declarations of interest? I just wonder if the district councillors need to do anything in respect of the Rothamsted Park subcommittee meeting, item 6. We're just noting it, aren't we, rather than deciding anything?
Chair, yes, I think that's right. We're not deciding anything.
Okay, all right. Let's move on then. Chairman's report on urgent items. We've just got one thing here, which is you'll probably have noticed that the common got fairly ploughed up where the circus was over the New Year period. So are we going to say a few words about that, Phil?
Yes, Chair, thank you. So under urgent items, we've had this question submitted by Councillor Hill. And if I'll just read out the question. If the question is, if there is more the council can do with regards to scheduling and reinstatement to ensure the high standard of the common after events. I have a bit of a response that I can give to that, Chair, if you'd like me to.
Yes, please.
So the update on the common following the damage by the circus is that we are reviewing options for remedial works, and we should have a clear plan by next week for levelling of the ground and reseeding. Within all our events licences, there are liability clauses, and we take a £1,000 deposit in advance. In this case, we've
excuse me, Phil. David Heritage is waiting.
Sorry. Thank you. Shall I continue, Chair?
Yes, please.
So in this case, we've retained the deposit and we'll be looking to get the rest from the circus. This is the first time we have let a large event run at this time of year, and we are not looking to run any more at this time of year again. The usual contracted circus takes place in October each year.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult to reinstate it. I mean, I know it's a bit of a mess and it's in a fairly high profile part of the common, but it shouldn't be that difficult to reinstate it. I mean, I've had some work done on my house which involved, the front lawn being mangled up, and they reseeded it and planted it, and it's still growing very well. So it shouldn't be too bad, even though it's quite a large area. But I think we want to avoid this again. Particularly during the winter months when the ground's likely to be fairly sodden. Does anybody else want to make any points?
Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Apologies, I should have raised my hand, but I actually enjoyed the circus. I took my family, and because we'd not been able to go to the arena panto, I do see the problem, but I for one enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair comment. I mean, we've got to take the benefits as well as the downsides. I think it was quite a popular event, and of course it brings more people into the town, and the pubs do well out of it and so forth. But nevertheless, we need to be a bit careful with the the ground conditions. Anybody else? Councillor Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the update, Phil. Just to be clear, are we confident that the work, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, so I'm not really sure about the ranges, but are we confident that the work will be, remedial work, the deposit will cover all the remedial work?
So, Chair, the answer to that is that I'm quite confident that the deposit will not cover the remedial work. However, we do have that liability clause in the licence, which says that they are expected to pay for any damage that they do, which includes that over and above what the deposit would actually cover. And I don't know whether it's worth me mentioning this, but it is only word so far. But on the day that the circus were leaving, they did email us to say they realise that they have done lots of damage and they're a reputable company and they would like to pay for the repairs. So we will be following that up.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Okay, any other points, or can we move on? I can't see everybody on my screen, so if you want to say something, do shout out. Okay, let's move on to item 5, which is to confirm the minutes of the last meeting of this committee on the 17th of November 2021. Can I sign those as an accurate record?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I will do that later. Now, moving on to item 6, which is receiving the minutes of these 3 working parties and 1 subcommittee. I think we're just receiving those rather than commenting on them, unless anybody wants to say anything. No. Okay, well then we've duly received those. Moving on to item 7, start of the officers' reports. The forward planner and resolution tracker, starting on page 17. Does anybody have any comments on that before we sort of move to the recommendations? Any additions or points people want to raise?
Chair, can I?
Yeah, Councillor Hill.
Just on the horse ride improvements, it mentions we're waiting on the consent of the Secretary of State, but it says complete. So would it not be complete when the work's done and once it's first approved by Secretary of State and then the work's done, as opposed to just we've allocated the money? That makes sense.
Yep. Phil.
Chair, the approach that we've taken with this is that the bit that this refers to as complete is the resolutions, and the resolutions were to approve the next phase of the pathway improvements. So that was given, so that was completed. The next one was to release the earmarked reserves, and that was completed as well, as were all the resolutions there. So this is indicating that the resolution's complete, but of course we have got the project to complete, which is currently just dependent on the Secretary of State consent. The slight delay caused to the Secretary of State consent was that the Open Spaces Society made some representation that we needed to involve the British Horse Society, and so that's what caused a few weeks delay, and we are just waiting for the consent now.
Okay, probably the wording of that could be a bit tighter. If we could say resolutions complete or something like that, rather than what we've got at the moment. Perhaps we could just take that away and just look at it, make it a little clearer.
Yes, Chair.
Chair, if I might add in a similar vein, there are other references to complete for other items, and I think the problem of what is complete and what isn't it could do with some attention, if not this time, then another time. Because I've been looking, for example, at the last one, new development of Roundwood Lane, Wood End. Yes, the approval of the appointment is complete, so it's accurate. That is complete, because the project isn't, and it would maybe help the reader who is reading very quickly just to amplify the wording in future. So
yeah,
that's abundantly clear.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. Yeah, agreed. Other than that, do we have anything else anybody wants to raise? Okay, well then, can we move to the recommendation on page 17, 2.1? Can we take those both together? All in favour?
Yeah.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Right, let's move on to 7.2, the budget, starting on 25, page 25. Yeah, I mean, the main thing is really it's not a huge amount of change conceptually from last time. The main variance on the expense side really was the staff costs, i.e. people leaving and not being replaced quickly. So that's the reason why that's as it is. Are there any other points on here, Phil, that you'd like to draw to our attention?
So, Chair, the only other point I have to pass on from the finance manager is that it's in regards to the end of year, that final variance, the favourable, excuse me, I'll start again. The variance is likely, very likely to still be favourable at the end of the year.
Yep.
But because we don't have the latest car park information from St Albans District Council yet, there is a strong possibility that the variance, the final year, end of year variance will be smaller than what it is at the minute.
Okay, all right, thank you. And the earmark reserves that we're releasing, those are the bottom 4 items on Appendix A in the variance column. It's 5,000, 155, 10 and 20. Any comments from anybody about the budgetary items or releasing the reserves? No? Okay. Well, in that case, can we move to the recommendations, page 25, 2.1. We're noting the report and approving the release of the reserves set out in section 4. All in favour? Thank you very much. That's carried.
Chair, sorry, we've approved it, and I don't have any problem in substance, but I just wonder about the wording, because the release is really for the council to do. And if you look at 4.1, this committee is requesting the release, whereas looking at 2.1.2, it looks as if we're approving the release, whereas actually we're approving the request for the release. I mean, the sense is clear, but maybe not the wording quite.
Yeah, is it, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong here, is it within the authority of this committee to release those reserves? Or does it have to go to council?
I believe very strongly that the answer to that is that this committee has the authority to release those reserves.
Yeah, because we're given a budget, aren't we? And the budget's agreed, and then it's up to us how it's allocated. So
on every other occasion, Chair, that any report that we have done at the committees that I've been to with you, if there's an earmarked reserve for something and we want to use it, we have asked this committee's authorisation to release the reserve, and this committee has done so. I haven't then had to take it to council or anything. It's been, the decision has been made by this committee.
Yeah, yeah.
If I may, Chair, just to point out that while we're on virtual meetings, we're back in the realms of the this committee will be recommending to approve the recommendation that they've been requested to make, and then the town clerk will make that approval under the delegated authority that the councillors have given him from the town council.
Okay, so what wording do we need for 2.1.2?
So if the chair, if the committee are minded to approve the recommendations that they're asked to approve, and this applies to all the papers as we go through tonight's committee, if they're minded to approve them, we will make sure that the wording of the resolution made by the council is correct to reflect what I've just said. Okay. All right. So I think we've just done that, haven't we? We just approved that. So we're okay to move on to 7.3. The tree policy.
We've got a surprising number of trees to look after in our various green spaces and so forth. And in the past, we've had to deal with things like outbreaks of sooty bark disease and various other things as well. So we do definitely need a policy in here, particularly as you know, we've got certain liabilities, etc. So do you want to just say a few words about this one, Phil? Or
yes, please, Chair. The policy obviously covers quite a few aspects of subjects related to trees. This committee last approved it in September 2019, so it's being brought before committee today with the request to consider reapproving it. The only addition that we've made to it at this time under review is the fact we've added Rothampstead Park in relation to tree surveys required and how frequently they're required. So that's gone into Zone 1.
Yeah.
As it mentions in the report, that when the town council take on the other 4 green sites coming from St Albans District Council, then they will also come under the realms of this policy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's quite an exercise and quite an expense as well, isn't it? Where we have to cut down trees and so forth because they're diseased or anything like that. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any comments on the tree policy? Any points they'd like to raise?
Yes, please, Chair. A couple, if I may. I'm not wanting to raise my hand because you can't see it. It's not a point, if that's all right.
It's all right. I can see you.
You can see me. That's fine. Okay. 2 points. On page 35, there are different zones of levels of risk priority, which is perfectly logical. But in zone 2, the second item is play areas, all right, with low numbers of large trees. But actually, I think members of the public, especially if they have children, would be rather surprised that play area, regardless of how few trees it has, is regarded as medium risk level, and therefore receives a little less attention than zone 1. That's my first point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you want to take that one, Phil?
Yes, Chair. I think the councillor makes a good point, and I don't really have anything to come back in to say that mitigates against what the councillor has just said. So I guess it's for the committee to decide if they approve anything, do they want to put the caveat on it that gets moved up into Zone 1?
Play areas, yes. What about recreation grounds? What do we think about that one? That's it. That's on page 35 in the right-hand column. Got play areas / recreation grounds. Are we content to leave recreation grounds there and move play areas into Zone 1?
Chair, I was actually thinking of the 2 together. I didn't make that clear, but I mean, wherever children go, you'd think that's high priority.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? I have no objection to that going into Zone 1. Okay, we'll move that. I mean, an example of the Zone 3, I think, is the strip of land between the A1081 and West Common Grove. That is in fact privately owned, even though it's council, even though it's common land. The houses which front onto the road, the High West Common or West Common, have a strip of the wooded area directly in front of them, except for 1 metre next to the 1081, which is county land, because it's highways land. Well, that area really is a low risk level area because there are very few, if any, footpaths through there. I can only think of one there might be one or two unofficial ones. And, you know, there's no point in spending a lot of money doing up that woodland or looking after that woodland, you know, if nobody goes there. It's, you know, it's a waste of time. That what we need to focus on are those trees which are close to either roads or, you know, play areas or cricket clubs or whatever, you know, which would give liability for the council, a much higher level of liability. So, okay, any other points on this that anybody would like to raise?
Yes, please, Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
On page 36, paragraph 4.2, I'm sure it isn't within our power to change it, but I wonder if it needs looking at by appropriate body. The insurance limit is £10 million, presumably that's 10 million per claim. And of course, a falling tree could kill someone or seriously maim them. And if it maimed, not killed, but maimed a young banker, accountant, or lawyer, as it were, with a huge earning potential from the age of 30 to 60 or whatever, you could well see that the damages claim could exceed 10 million. And I just wonder when, I say this body can't do it, but when the council last reviewed its insurance cover and whether it should take into account inflation and earning potential and damages claims.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually, I mean, if, for example, we change it from 10 million to 20 million, usually the premium doesn't double. It's usually a relatively minor increase in premium, so that it can be value for money.
Yeah. Yes, it's certainly be worth looking at the limits.
And that's probably one for the Corporate Policy Finance Committee.
Yeah, Councillor Hill.
Yeah, just to be clear, is that liability not just on the contractors and people sort of doing the tree assessment work, as opposed to, say, was it just on members of the general public as well?
My respondent to that, because I raised it, Councillor Hill is absolutely right in that this paragraph is about contractors having insurance cover. But I think the point should apply, my query should apply to both this, third parties having cover, and the council's own cover. I'm afraid I read it too quickly. I was thinking it was the council's own cover, but I think if there's a question to be raised, it applies to both. But thank you to Councillor Hill for raising that clarification.
Well, you could get to the point, at least theoretically, if the insurance limit is exceeded and the contractor goes into liquidation or something, then there might be a residual liability for the council. So we need to think about, because we're employing them as our agents, as it were, to do the work. I don't know. I think 10 million is quite high, actually, but it'd be worth looking at it, certainly.
Thank you.
Any more points? Okay, no more. In that case, we're asked to review the Town Council's tree policy, propose amendments if required, and to approve the tree policy. So with those points that we just raised, are we happy to approve the tree policy? Thank you very much.
And Chair, I'm just clarifying that on that, the bit that I need to amend within the wording of the approval is the bit about the play areas and recreation grounds moving from zone 2 to zone 1. I'm not amending anything in here at this time in relation to the insurance bit, am I? That's something
we're just inquiring about that and
okay, thank you.
Clarifying where we are. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to 7.4 on page 41. Well, the news under 2.1.2 is that the draft documents for Wood End Open Space and Roundwood Lane have at last been received by the town clerk and are being looked at. I don't know where we are with Arthur Close and Oakley Road. Well, I can't understand why the District Council's legal department is taking so long with this, given that these documents are basically very standard and have been used before. I know that legal department's always overworked, but, you know, I mean, what is it, 17 months? I mean, you know, ridiculous. Do you want to add anything to this, Phil?
So, Chair, the main thing for me on this is the point that although there is a timetable given within the report under 3.6 for the review to take place, I think that the point for me is that if we go ahead with that timetable, we are not going to be in a position to be able to ensure that the new bylaws following that procedure cover all of our green spaces, protect all of our green spaces, including the 4 new ones coming on board, because of the fact that they have to be in the name of the town council before the community engagement starts. Yeah. So looking at the recommendations on this, the second one is to agree that the 5 new assets, once transferred from St Albans City and District Council, should be added to the Harpenden Town Council bylaws. And I think that what's being asked here is if the committee were to go with that recommendation, I think that what we are doing is we are then changing the timeline of the community engagement and the process, because we would wait until we had got all of them in our name so that we didn't have to go through it and then start the same thing all over again, because we have to do it. You can't just add on the extra 2 or 4. You have to go through the whole process for the whole of the green spaces again.
Okay. Yep, and we don't want to be in a position where, if you like, our existing bylaws have effectively lapsed. You know, there's a gap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I do know that the land register is running behind, like lots of government departments. You know, the COVID, etc. I think we'd be better off to get everything, you know, all our ducks in a row, as it were, you know, everything registered in the town council's name before we really kick off the process. I think that's a sensible way to go. What do you think, Roger, as a legal man?
No, you're right, because the bureaucracy is desperately unfortunate. But if you don't get valid bylaws unless you wait until you own and you're on land registry, then that's what we've got to do. Yeah. However long it takes, it makes it doubly unfortunate that the legal department at St Albans are holding up half an hour's work, which puts all of this behind. But I don't see we have any choice. What I don't know is whether the bylaws that St Albans have cover all of these sites, and therefore, were there ever to be any official action against any miscreants, it could be done, albeit by St Albans, not by ours. And the point Phil alluded to, the second point, is whether, in fact, existing bylaws lapse, in which case we would have a gap, and I don't know the answers to either of those.
Okay. David.
Thank you. Apologies for being late, by the way. Technical problems. Just one point. I know she's part of this committee, but the other councillor, Heritage, has been in conversations with the leader of St Albans, as in Chris White, asking the reason for the delay. A piece of equipment in Oakley Road needs replacing. Now, this is not a used equipment. It was a little house that's been boarded off owing to misuse, if I put that in broad terms. They've been trying to replace it for 6 months, but all they've received from the district is that it's in the process of being transferred. Now, Chris White could not understand the delay, said he would investigate and get back to her and indeed the town council That's at the moment. So we are attacking it from both directions, really, from the town and outside
Okay.
bodies.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Unless anybody's got. Sorry, go on.
Excuse me. There were two questions I posed. I don't know if Phil has some answers to either of them as to whether the existing bylaws of St Albans are still in force, and if at any time they would lapse before we got our own bylaws in place.
So, Chair, I kept quiet because I find it a bit risky trying to answer that sort of question for a lawyer. But the answer that I've been given, but of course, not being a lawyer, I can't say 100% that it's correct. But the answer that I've been given is that once the green space passes into our name, the St Albans District Council bylaws that applied to it before that happened can no longer apply to it because it's no longer in their name. So, for example, we are in that position, as far as I understand it, with Rothamsted Park. St Albans District Council did have bylaws that applied to it, but because it's now in our name, it currently hasn't got bylaws in force.
Yeah. Okay. Does that cover your points, Roger?
It does, and it's unsatisfactory, but I'm not sure we can do anything about it. I mean, the practical thing is, of course, if anyone ever is prosecuted under the bylaws, and I'm guessing probably not, in which case it's rather academic. I mean, if people are dealing drugs, the police deal with it as a matter of drug dealing. I doubt if the police would refer to it bylaws. So, but I don't know if we can do anything else, because if they lapse, they lapse, and if we can't get new ones until we're on the legal title, then we can't get new ones. So, you know, there's no alternative.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically stuck until the legal department get around to doing this.
Yeah.
Oh dear, oh dear. Okay. Any further points? Okay. Well, can we move to the recommendation then? 2.1. 2.1.1. Note the update provided. 2.1.2. Agree that the 5 new assets which are given there, once transferred from St Albans, should be added to the Harpenden Town Council bylaws. All in favour? Thank you very much. Right, on to 7.5 on page 45. Variations to the tree planting plan. I had one small question on this. On page 51, the map of Marquis Meadow. Am I right in thinking that the yellow line in the lower picture is sort of going across rather than along the sort of boundary of the field?
So yes, Chair. Under the suggested variation, not only do we complete some of the hedgerow on the boundary as per the existing plan, and infill some of the gaps in the old hedge that are there, but the new hedge would go, or the new trees would go at roughly 90 degrees to that current boundary hedge, and it would go towards the river. Now, our new Green Spaces Development Officer, who has looked at this and then raised it with us and discussed it, seems to have huge amounts of knowledge when it comes to wildlife, plants, ecology. He seems to be a bit of an expert on all of that. And one of the other advantages of what he's suggesting is that would help create a sort of wildlife corridor linking the boundary hedge with the river as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, fine, thank you. Any other comments from anybody about the tree planting plan?
Chair, if I may just pick up something based on what you've just pointed out about that, the positioning of that same hedge on page 51.
Yep.
I mean, in the photograph, there's a clear footpath which basically leads up to that hedge and kind of approaches it at a 90-degree angle to where it will be. I just wondered how well used that footpath is, and if we're going to end up in a position whereby you have a hole in the hedge, whether we might actually consider planting it with a gap in the hedge for people to pass through if it is well used.
So, Chair, may I?
Yes, carry on, Phil.
That footpath is very well used. It gets lots of foot traffic along it, and the gap will be quite large because it won't only be for the pedestrians to get along the footpath, but there will also be a gap big enough to get a tractor and mower between the two parts of the meadow as well. So although it's very well used, the gap will be very adequate for people to continue using the footpath because we need machinery access through there as well.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, if I could just clarify, I wasn't talking about the actual the footpath that's the sort of real footpath, but there's trodden pathway sort of just alongside the boundary almost through the middle of the field or through the first sort of third of the field. So I guess it's a sort of additional footpath that people have created in the grass.
It looks like an unofficial footpath.
Yes.
Next to yellow A. There's a very faint line. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my apologies, Chair, and also to Councillor Scriven. I misunderstood that. At the minute, there isn't plans to leave a gap for that, as far as I'm aware. But if the committee chose to indicate that they wanted that done, then obviously I could get the plan adapted to reflect that.
Mm-hmm. So what do we? Are you proposing that, Lisa?
It was more a query, really. As to, I think ideally not. But it was a bit sort of like Rothamsted Park with the play area. People sort of will go where they want to go, and sometimes you may as well just embrace it and make it look like it's supposed to be there than end up with an unofficial hole in the hedge. So I guess it was more a query whether it's being considered and ruled out or not. I don't know if anyone else has any strong feeling on it either way.
Roger?
Actually, you probably can't see Councillor Hill, but he was before me, I think.
Okay, Councillor Hill.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Actually, the point Councillor Scriven makes is actually quite a good one. I know it quite well. I live quite near it. You do actually find a lot of people do actually walk along that bit on the sort of near the road, just almost because you can almost sort of create like a little loop. So you can sort of go in along the actual official path and come back along the other way, primarily in the summer months when it's not so muddy. But I mean, I suspect the way around it, if we wanted it just to make that little bit, you can still have a little bit shorter on the side, on the sort of side where it comes in at 90 degrees, slightly away from the road. I mean, I actually think that's actually a good place to have the trees there, because where kind of banks down in the winter, that bottom section gets quite badly flooded. So I suspect having road trees there might help sort of stop the bottom bit getting flooded. But yeah, I'd support leaving a gap there where that sort of people have created a footpath, I think.
I mean, do we want to put a gate in there? That's pedestrian gate. Is that because there is a gate at the other end of the main footpath, isn't there? There's by the ford. There is a gate through that fence. That might be a possibility. Councillor Butterworth.
Thanks. I've had second thoughts that I don't need to raise a point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other points on this? Okay, well, shall we leave it that Phil will, if we can approve the recommendations, I won't read them all out. They're on page 45. If Phil can sort of take an advisory to investigate the points we've just raised about the unofficial footpath, and whether we should leave a gap there, and report back to the next committee meeting, something like that.
Yes, Chair, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Can we take the recommendation all in one? We're approving the amendments, noting progress today, approving the release of 5k to deliver the plan, and approving the release of 50k of the capital to tree planting to be used in delivering the approved tree planting plan. All in favour? Thank you very much. It's carried. Right, 7.6, page 55. This item has a history. I think I can put it like that. People do get very excited about the number of trees, you know, that one is planning to remove from the common. Do you want to take us through this one, Phil? I know you've been walking the course and talking to the golf club people.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the summary of this is that the golf club would like this course development plan to form their direction for the next 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. As in pursuit of their consultation with us, town council officers have walked the golf course with us a couple of times, including the Green Spaces Development Officer, who, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, has got an awful lot of knowledge around ecology and wildlife and biodiversity, and is quite a guardian of it as well. So following that, we've then studied their plan in detail, and initially we gave them some feedback on some aspects that we didn't feel that we could be supportive of. Some of these fell mainly into two categories, really. One was if they were tree works that we felt weren't really necessary or proportionate. And the second category was if it interfered with the areas that were subject to the higher level stewardship agreement. So having received that feedback from us, the golf course management amended the plan slightly, and then they have taken it before their members, and then they've informed us that their members are in support of this. So they would now, they're now seeking Harpenden Town Council agreement in principle that this golf course plan for the next few years is acceptable. Now, I think that in practice, although it doesn't say it in here, I think that if the approval is given in agreement is given in principle by this committee, then I think that the way that we would, council officers would manage it practically would be that we would pass that back to the golf club, but we would then want to have, every time they're actually going to implement a part of the plan, then we would want to take a bit of a supervisory role and go along before they actually do it, and perhaps even be present when they do it as well, depending on what it is.
Yes, presumably this would have to be done in stages.
Yes, Chair.
There's a lot of work in here.
Yes. So this is their aspiration, and I think that they will, as the years go by, they will pick off which bits that they think that they're able to do during those particular years.
Okay, right. Thank you. And just to clarify, the bits about the areas affected by the higher level stewardship agreement, are those primarily the ones where we're putting in, you know, that acidic heather or whatever the technical term is for it?
Yeah. So it's the bits that as you've just said, actually, it's the bits that are covered mainly by acidic grassland, and we're trying to preserve that and, if anything, expand it. I mean, what the golf club were proposing to do in some of those areas which conflicted with it was plant extra trees and things in there, and that then conflicts with the trying to preserve the acidic grassland and things. So it wasn't bad things, it was just things that couldn't be done in those particular areas.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any comments from anybody on this this plan? Councillor Scruton.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of points really. On hole 4, so page 64, I just wanted to clarify that it mentions on the right-hand side rerouting the footpath. I just wanted to clarify, is that the path that currently goes sort of between, I guess, what's that residential property beyond the green and ducks into the woodland sort of at the top end of the picture? I'm just trying to understand where it goes, because currently we would, for example, ride the horses around the base of the bottom of the green and go into the forest. And now it looks like they'd almost be encouraging you to sort of come back across the fairway. So you would cross it twice almost.
Yes, Chair, I'm apologising for the delay here. I thought I knew that this really well, particularly having walked it twice. But I'm struggling to recognise where that actually. I don't play golf, you see, so I don't know the golf course well. I'm struggling to recognise exactly where that is.
So it's pretty much the furthest point. So if you walked away from the clubhouse, effectively along the road, I don't know the name of the road, past where the old pub used to be. Again, I don't know the name of the pub, and the car park. You keep walking. Yeah. It's on the left-hand side. Yeah. It's the furthest hole right on the left-hand side.
The road is East Common, and the pub.
I think I've got it now, Chair. It's the one. Okay. If we go back a bit on the opposite side of the road, you've got Banville Cricket Club, haven't you? A bit further back.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry, Councillor. The question was about rerouting the footpath.
Yes, it says rerouting the path through the trees to the right of the green to reduce traffic near the green. So I think currently you walk sort of between the hedgerow and the green and then access the woodland behind. Whereas now it looks like with the rerouting, you would sort of be walking across the fairway to go into the woods and then back across it, which kind of, I guess I understand why they might want to keep people away from the green, but I don't know if people double crossing the fairway makes much sense.
Right. Councillor, is it okay if I take that particular point away and look into it further?
Yeah, of course. Chair, shall I continue with the other points? So a general question really, drainage. What sort of drainage is it that they're using? Because it's obviously on a significant number of holes. And really off the back of that, would there not be an opportunity there to use the water to create some sort of water habitats, more water habitats around the course? I don't know if that's something that had been considered, because there's obviously an issue with too much lying water. So just really a point of interest. And is there currently actually an irrigation system in place? Because there are obviously a number of irrigation points being put in. So just whether that exists, and would that be a sort of sustainable source of irrigation? Would they be using water from drainage to then irrigate? That was a query really. But a comment generally, I like that the wildflower meadows and growing up the rough and heathers. I think those are positive things, and I don't have any issue really overall. What might be quite interesting to know is sort of the balance of how many trees are being removed and how many planted, because I think we're short of going through them and counting them ourselves. I think it's quite difficult to know what the balance is there.
So, Chair, do you want?
Hang on. Was that it, Lisa? Have you got any more points you want to?
That was all. Thank you.
Okay. Phil.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say, Chair, that quite a lot of that I'll have to go away and obtain detailed answers for. Regarding the drainage systems on there, I did see quite a few systems on there throughout the course. I recall seeing it's like underground pipes that lead from one place to another place where it's not going to cause a problem either for the course or for the horse permitted horse ride or for footpaths and things. So it's really just diverting the water from one place to another. And I think that that's the sort of plans that they've got in here for further drainage improvements that they're planning to do. In a couple of places, I think there was like border drain things, and that's where the pipes would be focused towards. But if I may, Chair, regarding the other details that were asked, then I think I need to go away and get and investigate that further.
Okay, thank you. All right, does anybody else have any points they'd like to raise? Okay, all right, that's so where are we? So I think the recommendation is the committee is asked to review Harpenham Common Golf Club course development plan and to approve it in principle. What I would suggest is approve it in principle, subject to the points that Councillor Scriven has raised, which Phil will get answers on, and then we can consider. I mean, this is a long-term or medium-term project. I mean, they won't be doing it all at once because I shouldn't think they've got the resources to do it all at once. But you know, I think those are good points, and you know, we can look into that. So apart from that, is everybody happy with the recommendation? Thank you very much. Okay, 7.7 on page 81, a memorial seat. Does anybody know either of the parties listed on page 83? That's Jane Smith in memory of Egan Calafell, because if so, they ought to declare an interest, I think. I don't know either of those parties. You remember we did develop some kind of a rough policy for, you know, we get quite a lot of requests for memorial seats and things of that kind, and we did develop a policy for that. I mean, it's not exactly perfect, but it's you know, it's better than not having anything. And that's been applied, and we've got a score of 9. Krill. That's on page 83. So that comes into the approve category. I think I'm right in saying.
So Chair, yes, I did notice. I noticed belatedly that a score had been included in here because I think that the committee, when they last saw the memorials policy, we removed the score table and took a slightly different approach. But what it shows is actually when the officer has done the assessment using the old table, it has scored the highest amount. And I'm just looking at a little bit more information that I've got. It says that the person's time in Harpenden was more than 30 years. But it's quite clear from the other information that we've got there that they've been involved in work around the Batford Springs Nature Reserve for quite some time. Yep.
So that would appear to meet the criteria. So does anybody have any comments on this, or are we content to approve the?
May I say, no disrespect to the deceased or the applicant, who I don't know. And we do, as a town council, as a committee, take an interest in everything locally in every detail. But and it's not long since we adopted our policy. But I wonder whether, in terms of the officer time, if nothing else, it takes to produce a request to come to committee for, you know, a single seat, whether In fact, there ought to be a slightly more streamlined procedure, and whether it needs to come to committee at all, unless officers are any doubt as to what the decision could be. Because as we see here, we don't actually know who it is, sadly. So we're not really adding anything, and officers are just diligently, correctly implementing something we've approved at the policy level.
Well, we could think of a scheme of delegation, couldn't we?
Yeah.
I wouldn't object to that. I mean, well, can we approve this one and then ask Phil to look into a scheme of delegation?
Yeah.
Hang on, we've got three people, Councillor Butterworth, Heritage and Scriven, in that order. Or are we approving that?
Approving.
We're approving it.
I beg your pardon, we're approving. Okay. Approved, Phil, and if you can have a look at the delegation point.
Yep, thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, 7.8 on page 85, the Batford bus shelter. It seems that costs have gone up. That's not surprising. Anybody who's having any building work done at the moment will know that. Also quite long delays with some of the materials. Got two developments taking place next door to me, and the people didn't order the roof tiles in time. And so they're looking at quite a long delay before that one can be finished. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Phil, to this report?
Not really, Chair. It is really, as you said, I underestimated how much this was cost. This was based on another one that I bought about 3 years ago, but prices have gone up. Yeah,
those days are over. Any comments from any committee members on this? Councillor Butterworth.
Yeah, just really, excuse my ignorance. I have no problem with approving this, but I'm just curious as to why this is the town council's responsibility rather than highways. Is it just by chance we happen to own that bit of land, or what's the reason?
Yep, Phil.
So, Chair, it's I wish I could remember exactly how many, but underneath the town council's assets, and I don't know what the history of it is, there are quite a number of bus stops, and we do regular inspections of them to see if any need replacing or if maintenance works are done. And as I say, I apologise that I don't know what the history is, but for example, there was a disused one which we've removed now in Carlton Road, which was reported to us as having quite a lot of graffiti and things. So we reported it to the county council, and they responded that it's owned by Harpenden Town Council. So we've got them, but I don't know what the history is behind that.
Yes, and a few years ago, I remember we replaced the bus shelters at the bottom of West Common Way. You know, one on either side of the road. For example, those are ours. So that's the reason.
Yes, Chair. And in my few years here, Chair, we've replaced the one on Station Road near the railway bridge down towards Marquis Lane, and we've also replaced the one in front of Harpenden Trust and the one opposite in front of the Plough and Harrow as well.
Okay. Okay.
If I could follow up, because when we were discussing acquiring the park, we were quite clear we couldn't spend any money ahead of owning the park, so we wouldn't fund the new play area until we absolutely owned the park. Whereas if, as I gather, we don't own where the bus shelters are placed, then that's an exception to that. There's a good reason for it, but ordinarily we don't spend money on land we don't own.
Yeah, that's true, but it appears that we own these bus shelters. Therefore, we can't get away with it. You know, if they become dilapidated, we've got to do something.
Yeah, okay.
We can get the history of this.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other points from anybody, or can we move to the recommendation? Okay, so 2.1.1, note the increased costs required to replace the bus shelter. Approve the release of a total of up to £11,000 from the earmarked reserves to fund this replacement. All in favour? Right, thank you very much. That's carried. Right, 7.9, page 89. The Alfresco Theatre event. Is there anything you'd like to add to the report, Phil?
Just to point out a potential correction in that the recommendation has been very specific with regards to including the exact dates of the event, but I'm aware that our events officer is actually in discussion with the company at the minute about alternative dates, but it would still be in June. So just to point out, although there's specific June dates in there, it would be in June if the committee saw fit to approve it, but it might not necessarily be those dates in June.
Okay. Do you want to alter the recommendation then to June, or?
Yes, please, Chair, if that is possible.
Okay. All right. So can take place on Harpenden Common in June. In June 2022.
Perhaps we could fix it to for a period of whatever number of days it is, because clearly it's not going to be the whole of June because it would be a bigger fee. But if it's going to be whatever it is, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 days or thereabouts, 6 consecutive days or thereabouts in June, it's a little bit more precise.
Yeah. Will that do, Phil, or is that too restrictive?
I think that would be fine, Chair, because the dates being discussed are a 6-day period of operations with 2 days set up before those 6 days and 1 day de-rig. And in one of the appendices, which is the one about the events, where they give an example that shows a 6-day operation, I think Tuesday till Sunday. So that should fit it.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any comments on this that they'd like to raise?
Sorry, me again. On dates, I have looked at the calendar, and the dates given here immediately follow the special Jubilee, Queen's Jubilee bank holiday weekend. So it's interesting they're discussing alternative dates, because what would be nice in terms of provision to the public would be that there is some event on the common for that bank holiday weekend. If not this one, then something else, if there's someone interested in providing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scriven. Sorry, have you finished?
Sorry, I did have another point, and that is just a point of information. It does say this is going to be on the common, which is absolutely fine. If it was proposed to be in the park, I think that wouldn't work, because I think, and the condition of, if I remember correctly, the condition of the transfer for St Albans was that we don't hold competing events, and this is a theatre which arguably would compete with Eric Morecambe, but that's just by and by, because of course this is on the common, so it's absolutely fine.
Okay. Councillor Scriven.
Thank you, Chair. My point sort of follows on from Roger, really. I just think for future events like this, it would be quite useful to know, or to have a calendar of events over the summer period or the year, to know kind of what usage and what activities are going on in the park, to see sort of where it fits in and how many days you're looking at over the period, because it can have a significant impact, I think. So yes, that was already, but I think it's been a popular event in St Albans. And I think it would be enjoyed by many here as well. So I have no problem with it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
If I may, Chair.
Yeah, please.
Yes, so I mean, as my colleagues have said, fully support the event. Sounds like a thoroughly enjoyable few days. Given what we've seen, obviously, with the common at the moment, I mean, I know Harpenden Junes are always glorious weather, but in the event that it was less desirable, are we confident that the reinstatement policies that we have are adequate, or do we want to look at beefing those up a bit to avoid some of the concerns that we've seen with this latest event we've had on the common?
Okay. Yes, Phil.
So, Chair, all I was going to say on that is clearly we do for an event like this. There would be the reinstatement deposit that we would take, which is ordinarily £1,000. But there is also, as with the circus one, within the license agreement with them, there would be the paragraph about, regardless of the deposit being £1,000, if they did more damage than that £1,000, then they would be liable for paying for the reinstatement. So I will take guidance from committee as to what changes they would like to see us make on that.
Well, I suppose it's a question of, how much do we think it's going to cost to reinstate? I mean, the ground is bound to be a lot firmer in June, I think. I mean, why don't we see how much it's going to cost to reinstate the current situation, and then consider the £1,000 limit or £1,000 deposit. Again, we can look at this. Can we look at this at the next committee meeting, or do we want to do something in the interim, or are you content to leave it with the officers?
Chair, I mean, I'm probably content to leave it with the officers, but £1,000, no, that's what it is not actually very much. And if we're going to review it, yes, summer's less of a problem than winter, but we may as well change it for this particular hiring if we can, if we're going to increase from 1,000.
Okay, I mean, what sort of amount are we looking at? Anybody got any suggestions? I mean, the reason I thought, if we look at what it's going to cost to clear up the fair, the current thing, that ought to be a maximum, didn't it? Given that the ground is, fairly well sorted.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be worse than that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So that should be a ceiling, but we don't know what that is at the moment.
I think you could probably have a monster truck rally on there, and it wouldn't cost that much more to reinstate it than it is at the moment. I think if we go with what the officers suggest, if they just take a look at it and whatever they're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with. I just thought I would flag it as given it's a current area of concern.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, all right, Phil, we'll leave it with you.
Thank you, Chair.
Now, is that it? Fresco Theatre. We haven't got any exempt business, have we? No.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
That's okay. This is quite a long event. Does it? Is it in addition to the cinema that already comes, or is it going to supersede that one?
Chair, the answer to that is that the cinema that has been to Harpenden on about 3 occasions, which I'm very pleased to say so far hasn't caused us any issues whatsoever. Because they do come to us, this company, the Alfresco Theatre, part of their offer is often a cinema, outdoor cinema. But they actually said to our events department that because the Luna Cinema come to us, they wouldn't have that. They wouldn't have outdoor cinema within their offer at Harpenden, simply so it didn't conflict with Luna Cinema. But trying to answer more fully what Councillor Lineker asked, we are expecting the Luna Cinema to come back this year. But as yet, they haven't notified me that they have carried out their review of events that they do each year. I'm sure that what they do each year is they review their events, look at any that were perhaps unprofitable and cull them from their list. And so until I actually hear from them, I don't know whether they will be coming back or not, but we are hoping that they will be coming back.
Okay.
Chair, can I just clarify? Was the recommendation for this one was? Did you?
Chair, can I ask? I've just got a couple of quick points as well. That's all.
Yeah, go on, Councillor.
Just firstly on the point about the Jubilee weekend. I mean, I was wondering actually whether it might be sensible to leave that weekend clear, because I don't know what we might find actually that there might be some, I don't know, Harpenden Trust or whatever, or some local group, British, I don't know, might actually like to have that week, you know, we might have some ideas of what something to do actually specifically related to the Jubilee, as opposed to just some separate event, which is a nice community event, but not, you know, related to the Jubilee in any way. And then that's something you could just sort of take away, depending on what for officers to think about. And then just on page 114, where we sort of describe on this is the event sort of policy. It sort of describes different events. You know, it mentions you know, like commercial events and community events, 7.2, 7.4. Presume is, I mean, to me this looks like a community event and a commercial event, and it says something about commercial events not being ticketed. But I mean, I understand this is a community event, but is it not a commercial event as well?
Phil?
So, Chair, can I just clarify? Councillor Hill, did you say that the policy says that commercial events won't be ticketed?
Yeah, well, so it says, as outlined in Harpenden Commons bylaws, common land must only host events that are free of charge for the public to attend and enjoy. Therefore, commercial events will not be granted permission to use this land if they are ticketed. I mean, this is a ticketed event, isn't it? I mean, but is it, or does it just include as a, if it's a ticketed event, it's a commercial event, isn't it? I'm just a bit confused about the policy there.
Yes, I think that you're raising a point that I need to look into. What I was saying, I'm just thinking of other commercial events. There's been, I mean, circuses have been coming for quite a few years, and circuses are ticketed events. I think that this sort of event here is definitely a commercial event. It's being offered by a commercial company that makes their money from delivering events, and that's why the fee that we would agree with them in this case reflects the fact it is a commercial event. Whereas if it was a local community wanted to stage a not-for-profit type event, then clearly that would be costed. If it was costed, it would be very different to what this one is.
But sorry, that does seem to be wrong then, doesn't it? Because 7.2, at the end of the second paragraph, has been pointed out, commercial events will not be granted permission to use if they're ticketed. Well, circus is an example. This is going to be an example. That just doesn't make sense. I'm looking at the bylaws at present, the ones that are at the back. Trying to make sense of it.
Chair, I'm wondering if it maybe falls under corporate events in 7.3.
I think corporate event is meant to be closed event, so it's
Not open to the public.
yeah. So KPMG wants to host it to train their auditors, or the cabinet wants to have a party or something, you know. But it's not open to the public. I'm trying to see where it has this restriction in the bylaws. I'm not immediately seeing it, Phil. Are you?
No, Councillor, I can recall that one of the bylaws talks about not having commercial events and commercial events unless they're authorised. But I think that the Councillor Hill has raised a very good point here, that I need to take this away and look into this section 7.2, because there seems, now that he's pointed that out, there seems to be something wrong here.
Yeah, I'm reading through the bylaws at the end, the last 2 pages, and there's no person shall, without the consent of the council, hold or take part in any public show or performance. Well, the council is consenting, so that's not a problem. There's nothing about not charging. So I think this is it. If these are the right bylaws, I think 7.2 on page 114 is just an incorrect quotation.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, Chair. So
that
if
needs
I
looking
might,
into.
okay, Chair, I will take that away and get that looked into and then corrected.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it might be worth looking at the other things, 72, 73, 74. There's obviously something wrong here. Better get them all checked.
Yes, thank you. I will.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entry fee for classics on the common, isn't there? For example, under community, under events. Anyway, we have it needs clarifying. Fair enough.
I think I mean, really, I'm not sure whether we can. Well, personally, whether I think I feel happy approving this event without knowing if it meets the policy. When whether we don't like the policy, yeah, that's just my view.
Well, the thing is, we have been, I think it's just an error, in the description somewhere, because we have been doing circuses for decades, and they're ticketed events, and similarly things like classics on the common are, ticketed events. So I think we might just need to just simply delete that sentence in 7.2, about not being given permission to use the land if they're ticketed, because that doesn't make sense.
If I might suggest, Chair, given the problem with 7.2, if we add in some language in the recommendation about where it says subject to the correct paperwork and licenses being provided, if we add some language in about and subject to it meeting the relevant policies of the Harpenden Town Council or something like that, just to cover us off.
Yeah, I think
that way whatever we're voting for in this committee doesn't end up being against our own rules if we go away and find there's a problem.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, are we then not reinforcing this protocol then when we think it's a bit suspect? I mean, it's clerical. There's just an error here on the face of the document, because 7.2 is pointing to the bylaws as justification for what it says, but the bylaws don't support it. So I'm happy with officers, if they look at it more thoroughly than we are this evening, makes the appropriate correction to the protocol.
Yeah.
I don't think that should stop us approving it on that basis this evening. And I think if we say subject to being compliant, as it were, then I think we end up going around in circles. I don't think that helps us.
Yeah, probably covered by correct paperwork, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's broad enough, isn't it? Also, of course, before the next committee meeting, I mean, presumably negotiations are taking place with Alfresco at the moment, and need to lock them in if we're going to.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other points, or can we move to the recommendation?
Brian, can I just check with Lisa, when this company has run events in St Albans, do they usually last this long? Because this is a very long time to tie up the whole common. I am concerned about the number of events they want to hold over the days, and also the massive disruption to the area around it. When I've read it up in the Hartsad, it's usually been sort of like a weekend of chefs coming along, not a whole, oh gosh, 9 days, I think. I know it's not 9 days of events, but it's 9 days of using up the common. So I just wondered if you had an idea when you've been to the St Albans one, how long it lasts.
Nicola, I'm not sure what the duration was. It's just, people book tickets for a day and have enjoyed it. So I don't know how many days it went on for, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there are I don't know if there's a page number 95. There are some. It says an example event week, and it gives the opening times. And Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is 6:30 in the evening to 22:30, and Saturday 9 to all day Saturday and Sunday. That gives us some idea of what they're looking to do. Any other points from anybody?
Yeah, can I just ask quickly, very quickly, but just on that, so it's not, so the common's still open, I mean, apart from the infrastructure, you know, the vans or whatever, the infrastructure that's there during the week, is the common still open to that bit of that specific bit of the common still open to walk your dog, say, on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday during the day, or is it sort of closed off?
I would presume so. I mean, that's the same with the circus, isn't it? You know, apart from, you know, circling the wagons, as it were, inside that area, you can walk anywhere around there.
And of course, there's a public footpath or bridleway, you know, along by the pond, so that obviously remains
Yes.
open. So Nicola, sorry, Lisa can still ride her horse.
Down there. Yep. Okay. So we move to the recommendation, if everybody's okay with that. Committee is asked to approve that the Alfresco Theatre event can take place on Harpenden Common for 6 days in June 2022 for a £10,000 fee, subject to the correct paperwork and licenses being provided. Everybody in favour? Right, are you sure? Okay, I can see 3 of us in favour. Councillor Hill, are you against or?
It was everyone.
Probably abstain, just because there's just too many uncertainties for me here, unfortunately.
Oh, all right.
And me too.
Okay.
I wish to abstain.
Okay, we've got 2 abstentions, and I think everybody else was okay with it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we haven't got any exempt business. Would have been item 8. So I think that's it. Are we all present and correct, Phil?
Yes, Chair, that looks as if we've got through it. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome. Okay, well, thanks very much, everybody, and Happy New Year, if I didn't say that at the beginning. And we continue.
Indeed.
So I close the meeting at 8:53. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Right.